The August 28th, 2023 meeting of the WVU Faculty Senate will come to order. I'd like to begin by welcoming Marjorie McDermott, who will be acting as parliamentarian for us in the place of Ann LaFaso, who has a teaching conflict this fall and will be on sabbatical in the spring. So Corey's actually studying to become a parliamentarian, but in the meantime, Marjorie's going to be filling in. So thank you, Marjorie. The minutes of the August 7th Faculty Senate meeting have been distributed as a link in your agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the August 7th minutes? Okay, hearing none. The minutes are approved as correct. The minutes are approved and will be distributed by Corey. Next is my report. And I'd like to begin by welcoming our new senators. Where are you, please? If you will stand and let us know who you are. Thank you. Let's give them a round. Yes. We appreciate your willingness to serve, especially now, right? Thank you. And that you haven't quit. Thank you. We are very happy about that. We'd also like to welcome the SGA President, Madison Santmeyer, Vice President Brogan Dozier, and Logan Pierce, the SGA Senate Liaison, if they are with us. Yes, here they are. Stand up so that everybody can see you and say hello. Okay, great. Thank you both. The new administration of SGA has a strong interest in working with Faculty Senate, and they've changed some of their committee structures, and so they will be having some more representatives on some committees this year. So we appreciate your involvement and connection. As per the Faculty Senate Constitution, the Senate Executive Committee is responsible for appointing members to the university-wide promotion and tenure advisory panel. At this time, we're seeking at least 14 faculty members to serve in this capacity for the 2023-2024 panel. If you're interested in serving, or if any of your constituents are interested in serving, please email Chris Staples or Associate Provost Tracy Morris. Regarding academic transformation, Provost Reed will be providing us an update on the program portfolio review and appeal process, but I did want to inform you that the Faculty Senate has secured commitments from upper administration to execute reviews and deliver individual reports, including data, metrics, position, organizational decisions, and implementation timelines for the following areas by October 31st. The Office of the President, the Office of the Provost, including academic service units and other personnel, the Dean's offices, strategic initiatives, university relations and enrollment management, student life, the research office, the Office of the General Counsel, and athletics. Next, I'm pleased to announce that a group is being formed to revise the WVU Code of Ethics. Code of Conduct. Code of Ethics is from my discipline. The initial group will be comprised of faculty, leadership, and members of the Office of the General Counsel as it relates to the reorganization of talent and culture in that area, I believe is now under Stephanie Taylor. We then anticipate the work of that group will be given to the Faculty Welfare Committee for feedback and to seek broad faculty input. Many concerns have been expressed relative to the current code and its perceived implications for academic freedom and freedom of speech. So we welcome this initiative, and we thank President Gee for his support to engage this initiative now. Oh, you got out of your gate. Okay. President Gee was stuck behind his gate. As a reminder, we've added a new Senate committee for fall, the Recruiting and Retention Committee, which will focus on how faculty can best support these highly critical university activities. There will be representatives on this committee from UR and from SGA. In addition to that new committee, we are refreshing both the service and the research committees as of this fall. Service will maintain its former charge to award spring service grants if those are funded, And will increase its focus on the rest of the existing charge, looking at the overall faculty service endeavor. And Lindsay Reinhardt from social work will be leading that effort. The research committee is starting anew after the Senate's vote to combine the former research integrity and research and scholarship committees. And they will be focused on their former combined charges, but with an additional charge of focusing more broadly on the faculty research endeavor. Next, I've been in communication with Dean of Students Corey Ferris concerning the Campus Safety Committee, which will be convened this year to address the implementation of campus carry at WVU. We've shared with Dean Ferris that faculty have a variety of concerns and questions that will need to be addressed in the planning for campus carry, and he has committed to the inclusion of faculty on that committee. Diana Davis, our chair-elect, will be spearheading our involvement from our end, and I think also perhaps recruiting some other volunteers at some point. So we're starting with faculty welfare with Emily and Diana on that initiative. T.N. Hawkins, director of the Caruth Center, has requested that I announce the upcoming event Send Silence Packing, immersive event focused on youth mental health and ending the silence surrounding suicide. The event will be held on the Woodburn Hall lawn on Tuesday, September the 12th. We encourage you to attend if you can and to share with faculty and encourage their attendance and encourage students to attend the event if possible. We have received a petition containing the minimum necessary number of 5% of faculty signatures, all verified as members of the University Assembly, to call an assembly meeting for the purpose of presenting a resolution on the confidence in President Gee's leadership and a second resolution to halt academic transformation. The assembly will be held at the Clay Theater and the Center for Creative Arts on Wednesday, September the 6th at 12 p.m. Parking will be available at the center and at the Coliseum, and security will be present on site. The faculty leadership at Beckley and Kaiser will be asked to convene their faculty in one room at each site to facilitate discussion and voting, and will access the assembly remotely. Extension faculty not assigned in the Morgantown area will also be provided links. We will also gladly welcome any of our remote colleagues who would like to travel to Morgantown and join us at the Clay Theater. A quorum must be established by the start of the assembly in order to call the meeting to order and conduct business. The faculty count will be established based on the combined faculty census at the Clay Theater, and if necessary, the overload site, the Davis Theater, in the rooms at Beckley and Kaiser, and individual extension faculty logged in online. There will be a person dedicated to doing nothing but counting and monitoring quorum. We are currently working to establish the exact number of faculty who will be required to reach quorum. Every fall, we must re-examine the faculty list to determine the membership of the assembly once contracts begin. That process is currently underway. Having said that, we can tell you that the number is approximately 700. We are requesting that unit leaders support faculty who have scheduled face-to-face or synchronous online classes during that time in providing out-of-class assignments to their students and canceling class so they can attend the assembly. Lastly, our next Senate meeting is scheduled for September 11th at 3:15 here at the College of Law. That concludes my report. Are there any questions for me? Thank you. The next item.
Hi, Frankie. Scott Critchlow, Eberly College.
Hi, Scott.
A lot of us in Eberly are wondering, why is this in person and we are not being provided with a hybrid option, especially given that some people will be? If the idea of an assembly is to provide the largest possible participation, a hybrid system would seem to be the best, especially considering the HSC faculty. They'll find it, I expect, pretty hard to move to the Clay Center in the middle of the day. So why can't we do a hybrid option?
Thanks, Scott. I had a sneaking feeling somebody would ask me that. So the face-to-face format was selected for two reasons. First, the WVU Zoom is limited to 1,000 participants. With the broad faculty concern about the topics to be addressed, as demonstrated through the petition and through numerous avenues of communication on the topic, we need to provide space large enough for the number of faculty we anticipate will attend, as well as non-faculty observers, including the media, who have also been invited into our process. So we have reason to believe we could exceed 1,000. Having the event at Creative Arts allows us to seat about 1,600, give or take, if we use overflow to the Davis Theater, which we're planning to do. Second, we learned a lot of hard lessons through the P&T, draft P&T document assembly that was called. And the biggest concern, or the biggest thing we learned from that, was that we cannot maintain order with that many people online. We are bound by our faculty constitution to follow Robert's Rules of Order, and we cannot do that with that many people online. We were out of order for the entire meeting during the P&T process. And I mean, we saw this most recently with our last faculty senate meeting, where faculty senators were repeatedly asked to stop posting in the chat and the Q&A and to raise their hand to be recognized. We have a process, and again, it's bound by our constitution. So dropping into the Q&A and in the chat online is akin to hollering out from your seat in this forum. So those are the reasons. A question online. Evelyn Martin. Evelyn?
Yes, I do not have a question.
You have a question, Evelyn?
I do not.
Okay. Amy.
Hi, thank you, Amy Weislegel, Eberly College. Regarding the point about the Q&A and chat causing the meeting to be run out of order in previous hybrid and online situations, it's possible to disable those entirely. Is it possible that audience participation, I'm speaking this partly out of my own self-interest because I won't be able to attend in person. And so it seems that to provide the most inclusive option, that there could be fixes to some of the problems you raised, such as, keeping the chat off for the meeting. Has that been considered?
I'm willing to hear more from any tech people, but my understanding is for panelists to be able to raise hands and speak and be heard, we cannot disable all of those functions.
Well, you'd be sacrificing the ability to speak, but at least you could observe and participate. Otherwise, there is no option for people who have no ability to, provide for that time in their schedule to travel to that part of campus. It's just that we know from experience, right, how much providing an online option can increase accessibility and inclusiveness in these processes. So
Right.
if there's
And we cannot limit the speech of faculty in an assembly, so everyone must have the ability to speak. And we have to, if we have an online hybrid setting, we have non-member participants who are not permitted to speak. And so that's why we segregate, when we've had online faculty senate meetings, we segregate, if you will, those who are panelists who can have full participation and must, under our constitution, have full participation, and those who are not permitted to participate unless recognized by a senator. And I appreciate the concern about the difficulty that it may, or that some people feel it may impose. I would challenge, we're in a small town. It's not that far over to Clay. We're securing ample parking, overflow in the Coliseum, and this is important business. This is important business.
Yeah, I'm in Prague right now, so I'll be on sabbatical and I won't be able to attend. So there's just, and like I said, I'm the only person, I'm not the only person who will have something that will prevent them from being physically present in Morgantown. So if there's any option to at least allow for participation, even if it doesn't enable people to speak, I think given the high profile nature and the impact that it has on all of us, it'd be appreciated.
Amy, other? Yes.
Lisa DiBartolomeo, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. To piggyback on what Scott and Amy said, I think for the vote, which you correctly identified as very important, and the discussion that would precede any vote, accessibility has to be front of mind. And I think particularly for folks at health sciences who may find it very difficult to leave in the middle of the day and come to the CAC from health sciences, it's not that far away. Traffic is beastly. I think we've done hybrids before, and I think that probably if people choose to attend online as opposed to in person, we can probably find a workaround, such as register, you get a specific Zoom link that would enable you to participate, and you stress to people what the etiquette will be, what the format will be, and how they will or will not be able to participate. And, if someone goes out of order, then you just don't recognize them, right? I think that the
Well,
importance
if
of
someone goes out of order
participation
by
is
putting things
critical.
in the chat and Q&A, we cannot stop that. And that happened at the last meeting,
Hmm.
even though people were asked repeatedly not to do that. I appreciate the concern. I also think that we are going to probably have in the neighborhood of 1,000 people. So thinking that we're restricting access, I don't think is true. And I think this is important business. If it's important enough to someone, they will find a way to create it in their schedule.
No,
And everyone doesn't have to be there for an assembly to proceed.
right, but we do have to have at least 7 people to maintain a quorum. And
700.
700, sorry. And I do get that 1,000 people is the max on our Zoom link. But again, I think Scott and Amy and I were talking about a hybrid model where those who can attend in person do attend in person, knowing full well that they're freeing up a space for someone who wouldn't otherwise be able to attend.
I appreciate that feedback, and I can assure you we had a long, long discussion about the pros and cons. I will say at this point that, there was the opportunity for this issue to be heard here, both of these issues to be heard here. And that opportunity was not taken. And so now we have a huge logistical problem on our hands, a huge logistical problem in 10 days to get 1,000 people safely in and out. And not only that, but to maintain order and to be able to run votes of all sorts. And so after weighing all the pros and cons, we've decided that we're going to go in a face-to-face format, except for those very limited people who are assigned outside of Morgantown. So I hope you all will think carefully on how important it is to you. Share with your colleagues that if it's important enough to find a way to get there, if it's important to them. Yes.
Frankie, I just wanted to clarify the technical aspects of the hybrid.
Please.
Okay, so I,
Could you identify yourself, please?
oh, I'm sorry. I'm Julie Black with the Teaching and Learning Commons, and I'm usually scenes in the booth running the Zoom.
Will somebody please recognize Julie? I'm sorry, just so we stay in order.
Bartolomeo, Eberly College, I recognize Julie Black from the TLC.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify a little bit of the hybrid setup. Now, we are limited to an 1,000 attendee webinar on Zoom because that's what we have. We're also limited to that on a Zoom large meeting. So that is our capacity online. We can lock down the chat and we can lock down the Q&A so that folks can be recognized in that other way. So I just wanted to clarify that is something we can lock down. But we are limited to 1,000 either participants with a meeting or attendees online. Thank you.
Thank you. And so is that for both? So it's locked down for for the assembly members in that, if not in that case?
So what we
whoever
ran into
panelists-
before, I believe, with the chat was that was in a webinar, and our senators are moved over as panelists. So we do give them the freedom to, of course, turn on their mics and things like that. Now locking down the chat for them, for everyone, we're able to do. The only thing we weren't able to do is people were putting things in the chat that could go out to the host and also the panelists. And that's something that we'd have to just not recognize. But again, I think, Frankie, you've been very, very clear where what we want people to raise their hands, whether they're in person or online, and be recognized, and or senators come to the mic, things like that. So there's definitely a protocol that we can follow, and we can further lock things down if needed.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Hi, Rose, can you hear me? Feels weird. Rose Casey, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. I just want to check and go back to something you said a moment ago, Frankie. Am I right that you were saying that we had whoever wrote the petition and submitted it had the opportunity to bring that petition to Faculty Senate and have Faculty Senate vote on those motions? And that because that opportunity wasn't taken, the meeting is now going to be held in person only and not hybrid. Am I understanding that correctly?
No.
Okay, could you clarify?
Because you phrase that as if that it were punitive. My point being that we have a face-to-face setting here.
Uh-huh.
And here we can fit all the senators in
I-
here, and we can fit visitors.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for clarifying. The reason, so it did sound like it was potentially punitive. So I'm
My
glad.
apologies.
I'm glad to hear that that's not the case. I would then just say it's categorically different to have Faculty Senate as opposed to University Assembly, obviously, because there are many more members of a University Assembly. And it is my understanding from reading the email that was sent out from Faculty Senate that the request was for this to be voted on, these two motions to be voted on by the University Assembly. I would assume that's because it's a larger body. I know that there was a vote by the University Assembly, maybe on COVID. Was it the PN? No, there was another one. COVID, was that just Faculty Senate? No. So
No,
the
it's
COVID
Senate.
one in, I forget, sorry, September 2020, I think. The COVID vote was University Assembly, and that was all done online, and it went effectively and smoothly. So, or at least it seemed like it from those of us who were, who were logging in. So, so yeah, I guess I was just wanting to check on the rationale. And then as a follow-up to say, of course, University Assembly is necessarily much bigger, and it would seem to give a voice to the full university faculty body, which, given the gravity of the motions as expressed through that email, seems like probably a good idea. Thank you.
Yes, I can't speak to what happened behind the scenes with the COVID online assembly. If someone who was behind the scenes wants to rise and speak to that, that would be worth hearing. I will say part of what made that different was COVID. We had just returned, and I think there were still a lot of concerns about COVID. And I think you said something very important, the nature of this business. The last time we had a university assembly to consider a vote of no confidence against the president, it was held at the CAC, and people were there face to face. And we heard from each other face to face on that important piece of business. So I think we have a precedent, and I appreciate the concerns. I also think that with the support of our unit leaders, that arrangements can be made. If I were not in the role I was in and I was teaching, I would cancel my class. And I will say also, just so you know, we selected the time we selected to try and get right in the, try and get in the sweet spot between morning childcare and afternoon childcare and evening, things. I know there was a concern about why we didn't put the assembly in the evening. I think there would have been lots of concerns about that. So we really tried to get, so you could eat. Yes, when I say there's a lot of complications here, there's a lot that you could eat, but also hopefully most people could stay with us and we could hopefully maintain quorum throughout the assembly and people wouldn't need to leave for childcare purposes. Oh, yes. I think you were up and
Emily Murphy with the College of Applied Human Sciences, former faculty senate chair who dealt with trying to run a faculty or helping running a faculty assembly online for the COVID vaccine. Number one, it was really hard for us to get to quorum originally, and then we started having people fall off the call, and we're worried about losing quorum throughout the meeting. In addition, because you're adding amendments to the resolution, we had literally 8 people trying to keep track of all the different amendments and all the different versions. It was chaos behind the scenes. We ended up having to stay late and making sure that we had captured everything that we needed to capture. We then had to go back and recount to make sure that those left on the meeting at the end were faculty centers, and we truly did have quorum to be able to do that. So it is a lot. It is very complicated. And at that time, we just met quorum. And so we were only trying to wrangle, for lack of better words, 700 participants online. But I do agree with Frankie that it was very difficult. And I'm glad that it looked smoothly to those that were on the other end, but it was not smooth for those of us that were in person in that room trying to finagle that faculty assembly online. Thank you.
Stefania Snisha, Davis College. I wanted to restate the importance. I believe that we have the quorum and allowing people to attend in an hybrid version will guarantee that much smoothly than an in-person meeting. And if the technical issue is not anymore an issue, if I understood correctly, the person who talked before me, then it is probably a decision that is based on other reason rather than technical. So if we can have maybe someone that technically moderate the chat and the Q&A, or I wonder if we can find a way. I'm sure, and I already received several emails asking for a hybrid solution, and I feel that like I received so many, maybe other faculty senator too did, so that can really facilitate participation. And considering the importance of the issue at hand and the decision to be made, I feel that that would be the best way to go.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Ripley Stickle from Eberly College. I was wondering if there could be just like a Qualtrics form that would give exceptions to people in different, foreign countries or on sabbatical so that we could include them. I think they need to be included, and if they're not on campus, not even in the state, that would be important to give them that option.
Can you clarify for the purpose of?
Well, I mean, okay, you're in Prague. Amy's in Prague. So there's no way, but she's obviously invested because she's showing up today. So is there, if we're going to have extension be able to hybrid in, could there not be exceptions to some of these individuals?
I'm sorry, I was trying to understand about the Qualtrics.
Well, some way that they could, request it instead of just giving it out to everybody. Like you had to request one and have a special, if you don't want to just allow it to everybody, but there are some that should be granted it. So I don't know if that would be a way that you meet one of these criteria that you could join in,
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on the technical issues from the people that are trying to run the meeting. In addition to the chat and the panelists and things like that, the technical issues, we're trying to make sure that you're keeping quorum, that you have, that you're also getting all those amendments written in the correct way when people are speaking online. It's very difficult to keep up with that. So it's not just the technical difficulties of having chat enabled or abled. It's really running the meeting in that hybrid format is very difficult.
Thank you.
Cindy Graves, School of Medicine. I would like to ask for consideration that the timing be reconsidered to sometime in the evening. It's very difficult for me to walk out of the OR on a patient that I'm operating on, a patient who's been waiting for, and it's not as simple as you say, if you are interested, you'll find a way, because these patients have been waiting for 2 months, 3 months for their surgery, and I can't just walk out on them. I can't walk out of my clinic on them. So a noon meeting, 1 o'clock meeting is extremely difficult for the representatives from the School of Medicine. So I would ask that you consider moving it to the evening.
I appreciate your concern with that, and I think there's no time where we wouldn't have conflicts for some groups of people. But thank you for your concern. I appreciate that. Okay. Next item on our agenda is President.
First of all, let me apologize for running a little bit late. I was actually locked into my house, if you can believe that. So, and I don't accuse anyone here of having done that, I can assure you. But I appreciate the fact that we're here today. I realize that this is a stressful time for everyone, certainly no more so than the people who are in this room. And I understand, of course, that change is difficult. But as I've said before, though difficult, change is absolutely necessary. And I want to use my time to revisit some themes I have watched emerge over the past 2 weeks. First, I want to be very clear that the university is not dismantling higher education. We are disrupting it. And many of you know, I am a firm believer in disruption. I have seen numerous stories and posts about how we are gutting or eviscerating our university. That is simply not true. What is factual is that we have majors that have low enrollment and are not cost effective to operate. Over the course of this academic transformation, which began at the start of 2020, many of these programs, by the way, were notified that they were not operating at an optimum level, including declining enrollments. That is why we have made the recommendations we did. This does not mean that the university does not value these programs. Certainly I do. For the people involved in those programs, we certainly do value them, but we must balance that value with the real student demand and the actual cost of delivery. That is what we're doing with the processes outlined in the Board of Governors rules, and that's the rules we're following right now. Let me just make one note. At the end of this process, however it ultimately works itself through, we will remain one of the most comprehensive R1 universities in the country. And I think that that's important for everyone to know. Second, there's been a lot of discussion, which I have had notes about, on what a university should be. So many are writing that a university should be a place for discovery and exploration, certainly exploration of new concepts and ideas, and I fully concur in that. Some have said that focusing on jobs is not what higher education should be about. I argue that we can do both and should do both, particularly as a land-grant institution. We are and will continue to be a place for discovery and learning of many new things. And we must also be a university that provides students with the skills that they may need to pursue the careers they want. I would argue nearly every single student today, certainly their parents, because I hear from them frequently, expect that their students to have a good job. And the students expect that. And they expect that at the end of their academic journey. And ideally, that job, of course, will be in West Virginia to support the needs of our state. This is not about sacrificing one thing over another. This is about making us a better university by offering the very academic programs, student experiences, and personal and leadership development students need to be successful post-graduation. Now, I realize that we are disrupting the status quo, and that is, of course, challenging. I understand we are making hard decisions, and those will affect people's lives. But we also do so in a time frame that will allow for those affected to seek new opportunities quickly. And to correct another point of information or misinformation, we did include feedback from faculty throughout this process. I know the provost will speak to that. And last, let me address the commentary on the budget and perceptions on increased extravagant spending. First, the process is about change and reinvention. The structural deficit that we inherited recently is just an acceleration of a process that we began in 2014. In fact, in my first speech to the faculty, I indicated that we we're going to have to change. I have done it ever since on almost all of my conversations with the faculty. And of course, recently we faced these budget challenges, but we faced budget challenges for a year. Over the past 6 or 7 years, we've lost about $37 million. And we've addressed those challenges by reducing the non-academic side of the university. That was exactly what we did. We built many of our financial issues on the backs of our classified and unclassified staff, and they have been reduced by more than 500 since 2016. And we are now merging colleges, as you know, as part of this process. So I did say in 2014 that I hoped that we could grow our enrollment to about 40,000. And, you know, if I'm being honest, I would hope that we can start rolling our enrollment again. At that time, we were at about 33,000. And we thought that we could grow our enrollment to about 40,000. And that was our aim. But I'll have to admit that with a number of challenges, including the pandemic, that we were not able to in 2019, right before, or 2020, right before the pandemic, we looked, because we changed our enrollment strategy in 2016, we looked at the largest class in the history of the university that would be coming in 2020. And that would have put us on the pathway to growing our enrollment again. But the university was not able to do that because of the pandemic. But the university did not continue to expand extravagantly during these times. 40,000 was an idea, not a strategy. And by that, I mean we didn't budget for 40,000 students. There's one example between 2012 and 2018. It is true that there are $820 million worth of upgrades to facilities to benefit the university and its students. But I want to clarify two things. West Virginia University itself did not spend $820 million for those projects. 5 of those projects were public-private partnerships where a private party or the county commission obtained debt and spent money for the construction of those projects, not the university. 2 of those facilities included apartments for upper-class students, which have been very popular, as you know, University Place and University Park. While it has been reported they are not at full capacity, that is not true. Both have been consistently running at 90%, and this year, all of our residence halls are running at 99% or 100%. Second, while I believe that the capital investments that have been made are very worthwhile, I would note that all of the public-private partnerships, including the Evansdale Crossing, were initiated prior to my joining the university. And I certainly applauded them, but those were commitments that have been made prior to that happening. Now, let me address 2 other things. We are audited every year by outside auditors. They come, they take a look, they look at our financial issues, they look at all of the issues that we are facing. We have received a clean audit every year since I've been here. Secondly of all, these are fiscally challenging times. The university maintains a AA rating from Fitch, and a double A3 rating from Moody's, and an A rating from Standards & Poor's. These rating agencies look at two things. They look at the financial stability of an institution, and they look at whether or not there was a great plan in terms of maintaining that financial stability. We're one of the few institutions in the country to have continued solid ratings from Fitch, from Moody's, and from Standard & Poor's. Those are the gold standard. And if anyone believes that the gold standard is denigrated by some of these other conversations, that is just simply not the case. So I share all of these things, not in defense of our leadership or to let you know, but to let you know that we are listening. And I know there are items that need further clarification, and we'll work to provide that. And we'll start, we have been doing that for some time. But I also understand that some of you are frustrated and angry. And I know that a lot of that anger is directed at me. You know, I've been doing this for 43 years. I've had a lot of anger directed at me over time. I'm not immune to it, but I certainly understand it. So I accept the criticism as it comes with the job. And while I know this is difficult, I'll also believe very deeply in the university. And I believe very deeply in what we're doing. And I believe that the course we're on is the course that will allow us as an institution to thrive over time. And I think in so doing that we will be much better for having done it. Saying that, I generally take questions, but I'm going to turn the time over to the provost, and then she and I can take questions afterwards. Is that all right with you, Marianne? Great.
Next on our agenda is Provost Reed.
Thank you, Gordon, and good afternoon, everyone. So for my report, I would like to provide a brief update on our academic transformation efforts to date. And then after I speak, President Gee and I and members of the senior leadership team and my team are all available to take questions. So first of all, our program portfolio review process is well underway. We are now in the middle of our appeals process, and those hearings began on Thursday. On Thursday and Friday, we received appeals from the Division of Forestry and Natural Resources, the Department of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering, the School of Public Health, and the Department of World Languages. And today we've received appeals from we held appealed hearings with the Department of Chemistry, the Division of Plant and Soil Sciences in the Davis College, and the School of Theater and Dance. So far, we've had 19 out of 25 units appealing the preliminary recommendations for either program discontinuations or personnel reductions. The appeals hearings run through this Friday. The result of those appeals will be reflected in the Provost's office final recommendations. Those final recommendations will go to the Board of Governors for a vote on September 15th. We will be sharing the final recommendations with the units within 3 business days of the appeals, and we will be publishing them on our academic transformation website for the campus to see. Paul Kreider has been chairing those hearings, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer questions as well. Our review of our academic support units has been somewhat delayed because this process of the program portfolio review, it's very complex, and we wanted to give it the time and attention that it deserved. So we're a little behind on that. We will be, we're aiming to send to those ASUs this Friday the results of the campus surveys, our assessment of their own self-studies, and general recommendations. We'll have some back and forth with those units, and then we anticipate being able to share those recommendations with the Board of Governors
at that September 15th meeting. The board does not vote on on those recommendations, but we are presenting to them as part of our overall transformation effort. At our Board of Governors meeting last week, I announced a timeline for the review of WVU extension. That will occur in January at the start of the spring semester, as will the program portfolio review process for Potomac State, as well as WVU Tech at Beckley. Again, we wanted to work through this process with the main campus and then begin that process anew in January. I want to acknowledge, I'm going to second what President Gee said. I know this is a very stressful time for our campus. You know, the previous academic transformation process that we engaged in spring of 2021 did not result in a reduction in force. So this is a very different animal. And I know that there's tremendous anxiety and fear and anger about this process. I just want to remind everybody that our Board of Governors directed us to engage in this accelerated process to help the university address its current financial challenges and to put us in a stronger footing for the future. But this accelerated process will result in people losing their jobs. And these, frankly, are people that we know, that we care about, whose contributions are valued. And none of us is taking this with a light heart. This is very, very serious business. And so what I want to share with you is that we are going to do everything we can to support those people who will be impacted through the RIF process. For one thing, again, the speed of this I know is one of the issues with folks, but the speed of this does allow us to give people as much notice as possible. We are offering modest severance packages, and I'm going to have Stephanie Taylor come up in a minute to talk about how we're expanding that to an additional group of faculty. And then for just a minute, if you would bear with me, I'd like to ask Melissa Latimer to come up from my office because I want her to update you on a couple of other areas of supports that we are going to provide to faculty.
Thank you. Some of this won't be new to you, but it will be sort of extension of existing resources. Just want to remind you that we have the Faculty, Staff, and Assistance Program. I'm just going to give the information as if everybody's new, right? Because some people are. It's a free service we have that's offered to WVU employees and their dependents, okay? Right now, they are in the process of hiring another counselor for our faculty and staff. We are sharing the cost of adding this new counselor to ensure that faculty and staff can be supported quickly. And we hope to have that counselor in place within a couple of weeks. In the meantime, I want to just give a shout out to the therapists from the Carew Center who have been helping FSAP. They've been assisting since the summer because the number of people coming is higher than normal. And they're going to continue that support through September, and we should have a new counselor in place by then. One of the things that they started this summer for us, this is FSAP, are these virtual and in-person drop-in sessions. They call them BEST sessions, and that is for brief emotional support team sessions. And so that offers people immediate support. Those, they're going to continue through the fall semester. If you go to their main page, they're on that front page of their website, and you can see when they are and who the different people are that are running those sessions. So that will continue to be available to you. I know I've talked about our ombuds before, but I just want to mention her again, Chris Schimmel. She continues to be available to faculty members because we now have an ombuds for graduate students. Her name is Dr. Kayla Former. She has agreed to see any faculty from Dr. Schimmel's home unit, ensuring that all faculty have this confidential assistance. So because we have two now, they are able to support each other in a way when we just had one. So we have both of those in play. The new information in terms of outplacement services. So we are currently negotiating a contract with an outplacement service to assist faculty and staff who've lost their jobs either through non-renewal or through involuntary separation. So we are paying for these services using our Benedum funds. I can't tell you the name of them yet, but we believe, according to an update by procurement, they had a great conversation with them this morning, and they believe that we could get a contract signed sometime this week. Once we have that contract signed, we'll be building out a website with the resources. They offer a lot of resources, and I'm going to tell you about some of them. But it's something that you'll be able to go to easily and find out and to utilize those resources. So they offer one-on-one proactive career coaching with an experienced consultant. If people want to stay in higher education, they have people specifically to help with that. If they're individuals who want to transition out of higher education into industry, they have people to help them as well. Changing visas, updating visas, changing visas to resumes, offer letters, applications, updating your social media or utilizing social media if you haven't used it before. Like I said, cover letter and professional correspondence templates, interview training, spousal and partner career transition assistance, as well as relocation assistance, job leads, and 24/7 in terms of there are live webinars as well as online asynchronous webinars. So there's a number of resources from them, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
We will definitely have more information on that and more specifics in the days ahead. And so one more person to call up, I'm sorry. I wanted Stephanie Taylor to come up and talk about how we're expanding our severance and offering it to additional groups of folks, and then to talk about the board meeting on September 15th and the opportunity for comment.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Good morning, or gosh, good afternoon, everybody. So first of all, I did want to provide a brief update. During our recent Board of Governors meeting, which was last week, I believe, the board did approve an addition to the faculty severance schedule. Basically, that approval included, now our severance packages include both clinical track and librarian track on the schedule. Depending on when their contract date ends will depend on the amount of severance that they get. But if their contract date ends on, say, May 9th, which is what we've proposed for our tenure track and tenured and TAPS and SAPs, they would get the same 12 weeks of severance. If for department needs, they need to stay beyond May 9th, then we would look at that additional notice period to determine the severance package beyond that. So that was done by the board, and I would say at the urging of your faculty senate representatives to make sure we included those additional classifications of faculty in the severance package schedule. So the second thing I did want to just say here at Faculty Senate is a reminder of some things that I mentioned on the campus conversation. So following the appeal process, those final recommendations will be placed on the public agenda for the September 15th Board of Governors meeting for a vote by the board. And you have two opportunities to provide any additional feedback you would like to our Board of Governors in advance of that September 15th meeting. The first is that you can submit a written comment about one of the final recommendations or about WVU transformation in general by completing an online form. And the link to that form is on our transformation page and was in the PowerPoint that I did for the campus communication. But I can also send it around to Corey to circulate to all of Faculty Senate as well. And then I do ask that to ensure that the board members have appropriate time to review any of the comments received. We do ask that you try and submit your comments at least 2 days in advance of the September 14th meeting. The second opportunity is to sign up to speak at the Board of Governors meeting. So on September 14th, we are essentially having a public hearing, if you will, for the Board of Governors. And folks are welcome to sign up to speak also by completing an online form. You know, if possible, please try to submit your request to speak 2 days in advance, but you will be able to sign up that day as well if you would like to before the start of the September 14th meeting. Depending on the number of individuals who sign up to speak, the board may limit the number of speakers who address them on particular final recommendations. And then the time each speaker can speak will be determined based on the number of speakers that sign up. So more likely than not, each speaker is likely to be given a maximum of 3 minutes each to address the crowd. And then I just wanted to address one final issue. And so I do look forward to working with Frankie and others to look at the code of conduct generally, but there's been some incorrect statements regarding the notice of reappointment letters and the WVU code of conduct as they currently stand. So we've seen focus on 2 partial clauses in the WVU code of conduct that some claim may undermine the right of free speech under the First Amendment. So I want to provide some accurate and complete information associated with that. First, the notice of reappointment letters regarding the code of conduct, they specifically stated all employees are expected to comply with the WVU values and code of conduct, which are available, and it provides the hyperlink. This is not a new statement in the notice of reappointment letters, contrary to what some folks have said. Rather, this statement has been part of the notice of reappointment letters since 2020. Second, the WVU code of conduct has been in existence and unchanged since 2018, and commentators have ignored important aspects of the code of conduct relevant to the First Amendment. For example, the introduction of the code of conduct, which contains an important reference to the First Amendment, provides, quoting, WVU promotes freedom of expression and open communication. The university supports and encourages everyone to express their thoughts and concerns in a respectful way. And then I will also say that the commentators, like I said earlier, focus on 2 partial clauses. The first is accept and encourage change that is for the greater good. This is listed under a bullet under the curiosity value, which provide examples how one can choose to execute that value. The second, which includes in its entirety, be an ambassador of WVU and avoid conflict that adversely affects the image of the university, is part of a bullet under the service value, which provides examples of how an individual can choose to execute that value. Commentators have also included that these partial clauses are mandates or requirements, and that is not accurate. The relevant language in both the notice of reappointment letters and the code of conduct are that these are the university's expectations, not the university's requirements. We specifically use the word expects or expected because an expectation is not, in fact, a requirement. It does not violate the First Amendment to encourage individuals to behave civilly when speaking to one another. Finally, commentators have asserted that WVU may use these 2 partial clauses to punish employees who express ideas with which university leadership may disagree. This is simply not accurate. To be clear, WVU has never used the language at issue as a basis for disciplining an employee. And a cursory review of media outlets and posts on social media reveal that there are many WVU employees that have no problem calling out administrators by name and expressing their firm disagreement with institutional decision-making. So I just wanted to clarify that for everyone. And I will turn it back over to Mary Ann.
Okay, at this time, you're finished.
Done,
and
but if there are
so-
any questions for the president, for me,
For-
or
Okay.
I'm happy to answer questions. Are there any questions?
Hello, I'm Olga Bruyaka from Chambers College of Business and Economics. I have actually 2 questions. The first one is about the budget for next year. If I wonder if the work has already begun, if we have to brace for a new wave of cuts. And the second one is a question about kind of more the process and learning from the process we're in right now to make sure that it never happens again. As the university goes through the transformation program, is there any sort of institutional knowledge that would be retained either in memos or procedures that will be embedded so that, let's say, some of these reviews of programs will be more on a continuous basis and not like as a sort of like crisis?
Let me, I'm just going to answer part of that, and then I've got other people who can address the budget. I will say to you that this process of, this program portfolio view process has taught us that there is additional data that we need to look at when evaluating programs beyond enrollment, and that we need to build that into our annual review process and make sure that data is available to everyone, and particularly the chairs who will be educated in how to use that data. So that piece I can speak to.
So from a budget perspective, we sought to provide realistic projections for enrollment for FY24 and FY25 so that we could aim towards a target that would allow us to go through something like this once and then move towards that. So the first step for looking at this year's budget and constructing next year's budget is to look at enrollment for the fall. And so if we're at or above budget as we come into the end of September and early October, there's still some movement at the moment and, registered not paid process. So we're looking through how many students enrolled at the university and the tuition that would be charged. So we're looking through that before we get through our registered not paid process. I don't want to comment too much on it, but once we get that, if we're hopefully at or a little bit above what that enrollment target might be, then we'll look at, are there adjustments for FY24? And then is there anything in our assumptions that would need to change things for FY25? So that'll be the first part of how we start to build the FY25 budget from that perspective. If your revenue projections from tuition are at a decent place, you can sort of extrapolate some of the housing and dining and some of those other things that will impact the university's budget, and build from there. So as it relates to a few points for the budget going forward, we do plan for FY25 to implement the new budget model, and our folks are working through right now of gathering all of the variables that are the components of that we hope to engage with the campus this fall as we work through that new budget model. And I think there are several goals we have several goals we're trying to accomplish with our new budget model. One of those is a new level of transparency and accountability for everybody as we move forward and have a better understanding of what drives our revenues and what drives our expenses, so that we're in a better position earlier to address our challenges going forward. If you look at the information we provided related to our budget historically up through last year, and you look at the budget document that we provided to the board this year, we went from 6 to 8 pages of information to about 40. And we're about halfway there on what we want the budget document to look like. As we get the new budget model in place, we'll be doing that on a going forward basis. Additionally, as we've come through, I would really say, sorry. As we work through the pandemic and all of its challenges, we learned. We're certainly trying to learn through the past year. And so I've challenged my teams, and in particular the finance team, to come up with a set of key performance metrics we can regularly review and have available at board meetings and at regular intervals, sort of give dashboards of financial health that everybody on campus can see as we move forward. And I think that as we combine that with what we've learned, and Mary Ann indicated, from academic transformation, we certainly hope, as we work through September and work into next year, to engage our campus leaders, our faculty. I include that as our faculty going forward, so that we all move forward better as we develop our financial the development of a particular budget and maintaining our overall financial health going forward. So we're going to try to continue to make improvements really from learning the past 3 to 4 years.
I was just going to say, I like the question because I think that one of the things we have learned is the fact that we're going to have to review data-wise about every 3 years. We're going to have to do a very deep dive on all of these, on our departments and programs, because the fact that we have not done that as effectively as we should. And I think that is one of the issues that we need to address. Secondly, Val, as painful this process is, it gives us an opportunity to start an investment strategy, which is what we intend on doing almost immediately. I might point out that when I was president of Ohio State in 2008, there was all of a sudden there was a meltdown of the stock market, everything. John Casey became the governor of Ohio and called me up one day and he said, well, there's an $8 billion budget deficit. The university is going to have to give a huge share of that. And that gave me pause, as you can imagine. And but what I learned through that was the fact that you can move quickly. There were 5 colleges of arts and sciences. We consolidated them into one. We did a number of things that allowed us to move quickly in a very serious budget time. And I think that speed is our friend, despite the fact that it is sometimes painful. I do believe that learning through speed is an important part of what we need to do. So are there other questions we can answer? The provost is here. Yes, hi.
Oh, I'm gonna move this so I don't bend over. So I've got a 3-part course, but they're gonna be quick. They're quick. They're very quick, and I mean.
Can you identify yourself?
Oh, sorry. Yes, hello. I'm Dan Totske, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. So a 3-parter, of course, because you gave me a microphone, but they're relatively quick. So with this process, with the preliminary recommendations of reductions in force, program discontinuation, et cetera, understanding the preliminary, but at this point, what is the projected deficit following those cuts? Meaning, I guess the flip side of it is, how much are we expecting in savings if these current recommendations are taken? Because assuming that's the decision.
I can try to take that. So there are a number of things merging. Let me just, I'll get to the specifics of your question as it relates to academic transformation and portfolio review. I want to sort of build on how all of that goes. So we achieved $21 million worth of cuts for FY24. It is our goal to hit at least 24 million to allow for an investment strategy for FY25, and that will come from a variety of sources. So for example, we think there will be savings from the mergers of the colleges. We think that there will be savings from some of the academic support and administrative support reviews that we are currently undertaking. And then I believe there are some other things, and I'll let Marianne speak on this as it relates to things beyond academic program review that may result in a savings, teaching loads, and some of those things long term as we look at it from a savings perspective. If you look at the personnel savings, and I'm going to give you a range because I don't want to be inaccurate, and I also want to indicate that we're still going through the appeals process. I think the salary and benefit value, and the other thing is, I want to be careful on this particular range because we have to go through the appeals process, and then there's a process from September to October where provost office will work with the various departments to determine which and who, and so the reduction in force and who that might impact could change. Additionally, there already has been, and there will be, we suspect, folks who will indicate to the university. I'll get to your question. I'm just providing some context. I don't want to say you said. I'm just providing some context. There will be folks, faculty members, other staff who will indicate that they have decided to move on elsewhere or they decide to retire. And so those are savings that I suspect as we go through that process, we'll begin to lower that. And so I don't know if it's a lower level paid employee, higher paid employee. So there's sort of a range. So all of that caveat, if you look at the range of, was it around 160 faculty? Is that right? 169. Okay. So you're talking in the range of 16 to 18 million, including salary and benefits, if there are no appeals that are granted. But I would pause for everybody to wait until the end of that process. And again, that could range from, depending on who ends up with a RIF or who decides to walk away, that would eliminate a need for a RIF. Sorry, long-winded answer to a question, but I wanted to appropriately caveat because we don't have a specific dollar amount. We have a range given faculty salaries.
You were calling me on the short question part. So actually related to that, so with any sort of organizational change process sort of baked into it, right, is, okay, we're gonna have cuts, layoffs, whatever built in, but then you also estimate some level of voluntary turnover or people quitting. What is that estimate of the percentage of faculty you anticipate exiting the university willingly?
So I don't know the answer to that question,
Okay.
but we are monitoring it and trying to mine for savings. So I'll just
Sure.
give you an example. So had a gentleman that worked in communications and did communications work for me for talent and culture, UPD, and a couple of others. He was recruited to go someplace else. I think $85,000-$90,000 salary. Something, shouldn't get that specific, but plus benefits, low high figure, early six figures. So we're not replacing that position. So we have asked not just for faculty, but for staff and for other administrative positions, as people leave the institution, can we mine those savings going forward? And so everybody's doing this, but just for strategic initiatives between Chris leaving and this position, there's a few $100,000 of savings that can come off of that $24 million. Or if we achieve that, then as President Gee indicated, we look to invest going forward. We normally have each year, I think it's around 4 to 5% turnover of employees. And so I don't have a figure on how much that would be, but I'm happy to get some additional information on where that goes going forward for that process. When we did when we've done some staff reductions in the past, I think we have had instances where if there was going to be a reduction, we've worked through with folks who were going to retire or sort of work through those plans. And I think that's something that we hope to be able to do once we get through the September board meeting.
Great. And I promise.
Dan, if I could ask you to yield at this point, and we do have some people waiting.
I'll wait.
Thank you. Online, Jonna Katz.
Hi, Jonah Katz, Everly College. I have a question for President Gee. So you said in your remarks, I mean, you stressed how tightly the budget is controlled and how much scrutiny it's under. You said there are yearly audits. My question is, given that level of control and scrutiny, why did we only hear about this structural deficit in late March?
Well, actually, we have been talking about budgetary deficits for some time, but we started identifying it really very profoundly at that time because of the fact that our enrollment, we had basically over 1,000 students who we expected to return who didn't return. So that was one of the major issues that we had to deal with. So that accelerated it, needless to say. And as I said, the transformation process that we've been going through that I identified in 2020 is something that we'd be doing no matter where we were in terms of the structural deficit that we had. Questions? Hi.
Thorsten Wüst, Stadler College. I have a clarifying question regarding the process of the appeals, just to understand if there's a reasoning behind limiting the access of faculty or making it public when the different departments want to appeal and restricting it very severely due to my limited knowledge from Twitter. So I don't know what really the process is. So if you could clarify that.
Sure, Thurston. The composition of the committee is established in our board rules under the program review process. And I don't believe we have ever opened those up to the public because there is a sense that people need to weigh this information carefully, that it is a highly professional process, and we've never opened them up to the public. So I will say we've not received a lot of requests to open them up, but we've never done that before. And the composition of the committee is very carefully determined by our board rules.
So I just thought with the transparency focus of the process that in my mind that would align with holding it here. But I understand if there's a legal.
Well, and honestly, I do believe we've been very transparent. I mean, we're going to release those decisions immediately. But yes, the panel has been a closed process. Yep.
Stefania Sanisha, Davis College. I have a question in relation to the appeal process. Since the beginning was August 21st, so I wonder if you have already an idea of the percentage of the success of the appeal. So since you have to give notice within 3 business days after the appeal, so I wonder if you can just tell us, we had this number of appeal and X percentage has been successful, or if you have that data at end.
So we've had 7 appeals so far, and we will be beginning to share those results tomorrow. So I don't want to necessarily do that in advance of that. And I can't give you a percentage, but I do know that decisions were made. I believe a couple of appeals were approved, and the majority were not, but well, no, Lou knows this. So Lou, do you want to come up here and answer this? Sorry.
I'm going to speak in super generalities because we haven't released them publicly yet. What I'm comfortable saying is about half have been appealed, but each appeal may have several items, right? So of all the items we have voted on, about half have been granted.
Thank you.
Hi, Ella Chelikbash, Eberle College. If I'm from the WBU School of Mathematical and Data Sciences, and our appeal date is tomorrow for our graduate programs. And I wonder, you explain how the appeal committee is formed, and you follow the, thanks for explaining that, the board rules. But I'm wondering about the observers from our school, because at the recent meeting with our dean, we were told that we can have 1 observer because only our director is allowed from our school to represent us at that appeal. And I'm wondering why we cannot have another member of the school as an observer at this appeal. Thank you.
We actually, and I'm going to stand if I'm corrected, but we actually did not say, we said there could be 1 dissenting person outside of the representative of the dean's office. So, pardon? And a second presenter as well.
So we are allowed to have another observer in addition to our director from School of Mathematical and Data Sciences to take notes and witness the whole thing?
The director can nominate, or the chair can nominate a second presenter.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to tell this to our director and then we will
And that
proceed
is,
accordingly.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Rose Casey, Eberle College of Arts and Sciences. I have a question about how we understand the current moment. So in the Wall Street Journal today, President Gee said, I quote, "I don't view ourselves in a financial crisis," end quote. Now that's despite riffing 204 faculty in 2023 and at least 100 staff, if all of the projected 169 or proposed 169 faculty riffs go through. That's also despite spending $800 million in upgrades between 2012 and 2018. I take your point, President Gee, that was not all under your watch. And despite our being $45 million short for the 23-24 academic year. It's also despite its being unheard of for a public flagship land grant R1 University to RIF tenure track and tenured faculty without declaring financial crisis. It is unheard of. This is an unprecedented moment. It seems to many as though the current moment is a financial crisis. It also seems that it has allowed President Gee and current leadership to enact the changes that have been being discussed for years, since at least 2020, but perhaps before. In other words, would these cuts have gone through anyway? And what would you say to this analysis? Thank you.
Well, Rose, I'll answer the first question. The reason I said that is the fact that if we were not doing what we're doing now, we would have a financial crisis. It would grow to $75 to $100 million. And by handling it the way that we're handling it right now, it is going to be behind us, not in front of us. And that's the reason I said that. And I believe that very, very distinctly. I have been through $100 million crises, and they grow. And this is a structural crisis. You understand that if we don't get rid of it now, it will grow and it will grow and it will grow. And so, and by the way, remember this, we have a $1.3 billion budget in just the university portion. The overall budget of the university, including the academic medical center and WVU medicine, is about $7 billion. And so when we think about all of that, we're trying to get our arms around the immediate set of issues. And that is exactly the reason for doing that. And I can't remember the second point you made to me was unprecedented. Unprecedented. Well, you know, I've been part of universities for a long time. It's not unprecedented to let, you know, Rose. Well, I can, we will provide, but it is not unprecedented. And besides, we don't need to declare a financial exigency when we are doing what we are doing, which is to, what we're doing is we are pruning in order to plant. And I want to make that clear. We're pruning in order to plant. When we have certain programs that have just overextended themselves, and we can no longer sustain those based upon student numbers, and we have to listen to our student numbers. Our students vote with their feet, and they've been doing that rather dramatically. And so we have to take a look at that very carefully. That is not a financial exigency. What it is it's a reality that we have to deal with.
Hey, Dan
Hey,
Totske,
Hey,
Everly
listen,
College.
what is Dan? What is your third question?
No,
I was
gonna-
really curious.
I know, I was gonna say the long-awaited end of the trilogy, continuing the Everly roulette up here. So fine, it got me a second to beauty up. So what I wanted to go back to was talking about the deficit, some of the actions taken to close the deficit and so on. So to this point, we've been talking about the program reductions, proposed program discontinuation and faculty reductions as cost saving, meaning we're no longer spending that money. You're going to stop giving media interviews. So on Friday, the DA, our student newspaper, put out an interview with President Gee where you said, for example, let's just take world languages. We'll take 5.8 million and we'll put it into forensics. And so to me, that seems like a reallocation of funds or hypothetical, proposed, recommended, so on, caveat. So how does the reallocation of funds rather than reducing spending immediately address the budget deficit?
Well, you know, what I was talking about, they were asking me a kind of they were asking me a philosophical question, you know, what could we do with the $5.8 million? And I said, well, we could eventually reinvest it somewhere. If I didn't use the word eventual, then that's what that's
I'll
what
put
we're
that in
saying.
brackets.
But yeah, would you do that for me,
Yeah, you got
please?
it, yeah.
You know, student newspapers sometimes, and I don't get it right either. I can understand that. But the point is the fact that we will be able to start taking dollars that we have saved and start putting them into growth opportunities, and we intend on doing that. That, you know, I can tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, I've done this. I don't intend on seeing us just continue to reduce our budgets. We have to start to grow again. We have to grow in a number of different ways, and we have to do that by finding those programs that parents and students want, that distinguish us as institutions. I was just today at the Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute. We happen to have one of the world's great brain centers here. And we have invested a lot of money into it, but in 7 years, it has turned to be a premier brain center. We happen to have one of the world's most important cardiac and vascular centers now. We have invested heavily, and we'll continue to invest. Now that's in medicine, but we have opportunities to grow in data science. We have opportunities to grow in a number of areas where there is great popularity. For example, with forensics, I can tell you that the chair of forensics would tell you that with more money, he can grow that number rather substantially. That's just one idea about it. Doesn't mean that the others are unimportant. It does mean that we have to get ourselves in a position to be successful. And that's what it is. And I like the question.
Thanks. Spent a lot of time on it. No, so just to clarify, the intention is stop spending, reassess, then if possible, move funding.
We don't
Not
want,
just move.
I think that Rob said it fairly clearly. We want to get, and I've said this all the time, we want to squeeze the damn deficit out as fast as we can so that we can start reimagining and reinvesting. And the longer we don't squeeze it out, and this is to Rose's point, if we didn't get rid of it now, then it would grow and it would grow, and then all of a sudden we would be looking at a much different configuration. We just can't do that, and that's the issue. But I will tell you also that if we would, that even if we didn't have the budget deficit, we would still be doing the same thing we're doing, because we have to look at the long term. We have to look over the horizon. We have to see where we're going. We are an institution that is distressed, and I'll say this, and I know that people get upset with me when I say it, but the latest issue is this: the American public has lost confidence in the American university, and we've got to regain that confidence. I was just at Amazon. Some of you have heard me say this. I was just at Amazon. I was at Microsoft. They don't care about universities. They're going to create their own, because they don't believe that we're producing the kind of students they want to have, including those who can read and write and do other things. So we have to reconfigure ourselves in order to be a successful institution. And the sooner we do it, the better we'll lead. And then the sooner we do it, the better that everyone here will be taken care of. And the other thing is this: is that I have two responsibilities. One is I hate the one responsibility I have, which is the fact that we are eliminating some friends of mine, some faculty, others. But I also have responsibility to those 90+% of the people who are here, so that they can stay here, that they can have a life, that they can get well paid, that we can raise their salaries and we can be successful. We never talk about the 95% of the people. We always talk about the other side of it. It's awful that we have to talk about either side of it, but that's what we have to do in order to be damn successful as an institution. And this is a painful time. No one is more pained than the people in this room, and certainly than me. But if we don't do it, I can guarantee you that we'll be looking to our right and looking to our left like they did in law school in my old days. Look to your right and look to your left, and one of you not going to be. And we're not going to have that. I'm not on my watch.
Thanks for taking my questions. I'm done now.
Hi, Lindsay Reinhardt, Eberly College School of Social Work. So I got a two-pointer now as well. It seems like we clarified a lot of talking points, and one that I keep hearing that seems to be an underselling is this 2% of students that are being impacted. And when we cut languages and a whole bunch of other things, we're impacting a lot of students that are losing opportunities. And so I understand that we're talking about their primary majors, but every time I read that, it's upsetting to me because it doesn't seem like it's accurately portraying the story. I don't know if there's a response.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, if you take a look at the residual impact, absolutely. But we're talking about those who are in majors, right? Number one. Number two is the fact that we hope that by investing in other programs, they're going to have a lot of different kind of opportunities, including in your program, of course. And I think that is important. But we try to do it this way. We try to impact the fewest number of students directly impacted, and the fewest number of faculty directly impacted. That was probably our polar star in this whole process going through in terms of the direct impact.
So that leads me to the second part of my question. So I am from social work. We have been designated as a state priority, but while we are happy that we are not losing faculty and we feel for other departments, we're still being told we can't do hardly anything. We have no money for professional development this year. I'm on a national committee that I can't go represent the university at. But furthermore, I'm kind of being told I need to redesign my courses and cut them out because I'm going to have to start offering them to almost twice as many students as they were designed for the foreseeable future. So at what point are we pruning to grow here? I mean, we are going to damage our program, what we're doing to it.
You know, the provost would probably answer this better, but absolutely, why are we doing what we're doing now? So that we can say to you, start growing again, okay? That's what we're doing. If we don't do it, we're not going to be able to say that to you. That's the point. The point is, remember, it's like, you know, it's a short-term issue versus the long-term. We're trying to look long-term. I think everyone here should look long, because the future of the university requires us to have a much longer view than the immediate, I think.
We would like some longer term information so that we know what to do.
Eugenia Peñas, Davis College, which, as you know, has been hit very hard. So my question is, we're not talking about trimming. I think we're talking about amputations, or in some cases, kind of a compulsive cuts. My question is, for the faculty that will remain, I don't know if kind of maybe one of those things, zombie movies, maybe the life is not that pretty. So how are you going to increase the confidence to stay here at WVU if the situation doesn't look too good, since in 3 to 5 years, like you said, this may be repeated? When you compulsively cut, the programs, like my colleague was saying before, are going to go down. Students will not come. And actually, I can tell you, my students have told me that if they had known this, they wouldn't have come, and some of them already transferred. How are you going to? I'm talking about several programs in the Davis College, the Environmental Soil and Water Sciences, who has grown in the last 2-3 years immensely. It's going to go down because we're going to cut faculty and the quality will not be the same. But that's not it. I'm talking about faculty. How are you going to convince us to stay?
Well,
Can I just answer one thing? Eugenia, I wouldn't say it was compulsive. I would not say that the proposed reductions are compulsive. We followed a very rigorous process. Granted, it was an accelerated process in which we looked at key data, including enrollment trends, and departmental costs, and it was applied across the board. So to say that it's compulsive, I don't think is entirely fair, but it is happening quickly. Yes, I understand. No, and I just wanted to defend the process. I respect what you're saying about the speed of this, and it may seem compulsive because of the speed, but I want to clarify that. And I'll let President Gee weigh in as well, but I think there will be some unintended consequences of doing this work, and I think we have to acknowledge that. But we do have a challenging budget environment, and we have to make choices, and none of these choices is perfect. And none of them is, all of them have an impact on people. And so I just want to acknowledge what you're saying, and I appreciate that. But our goal is to get to a better place so that we can be a stronger institution and continue to attract good students and faculty. And the other piece I would say, and I think President Gee didn't mention this, is we know that our universities within our region are facing similar challenges. And yes, Rose, this may be unprecedented, but it won't be the first.
We have one online and one person waiting here, and then we're going to stop. No, you're next. So because we do have a lot of other regular business to attend to.
Yes. One last question, Stefania Stanisha, Davis College. One of the questions raised by colleagues in the Davis College is that maybe we know that the academic transformation is a data-driven process that has been very clear since the very beginning. But we wonder if the absence of a strategic plan at the university level somehow has skewed the decision of discontinuing some of the programs, probably with a strategic plan in place. That decision would have been different. And I'm in the landscape architecture program, and we see our program as really important for the university mission. And so I wonder if, and we were wondering if the absence of a strategic plan, it's affecting some of the decision related to program discontinuance.
So I'll try to channel on behalf of the leadership team on that particular question. And so a couple of things. Often in higher education, when strategic plans are taken on, it's a multi-year process, and they end up being so broad and so infinite that everybody feels like they can fit under one. And so there's a tremendous amount of effort that at the end of 2 years, there's not as much differentiation that you would expect to get out of a strategic plan. And I think President Gee has indicated that through the course of his career, that you can go through that process, and in that 2 years, the world will sort of pass you by and where you need to go. Now, I do think that we have articulated, and I'll sort of talk about the last couple of questions, what our important polar stars are in terms of differentiation from a student perspective and students as learners and what we need to do going forward. Our connection to the state and how we need to move forward. We've talked a lot about the importance of healthcare and what we've done in collaboration going forward in a number of those principles and priorities that I think have helped to guide our progress as we move forward. And but you raise a fair point about focused goal setting as an institution as we come out of this. And I want to be very careful and thoughtful. The changes we're making are hard, and they're very, very personal, and it's going to be challenging for the institution. We believe that there'll be other institutions over the next 3 to 5 years that will go through this later, and we'll be better positioned, and time will tell whether that's true or not. And I don't want to diminish any of the things that we are doing right now and how hard it is. On the other hand, here's sort of my goal, and I'm a two-time grad. I'm a homer. I mean, I love this institution, and we are all, including me, very open and subject to, and perhaps entitled to, some criticism. And I've spent a lot of time the past few weeks sort of thinking about that. And I actually made a list of all the programs that are going to remain by college for myself. I'm not meaning like, I know there's some programs that have been proposed to go away, but at the end of this process, I think there's over 300 majors that are going to remain in Morgantown from how we move forward. And I think from my perspective, what the opportunity that we need going forward is, as we write this next chapter of WVU, to do some of that focused goal setting for each college. What's the program that's going to move enrollment the most? What's the one that's going to touch every West Virginian? We're going to have to go through that process. It's hard to see right now. In fact, we have been a little bit hesitant to sort of talk about, hey, let's focus on that goal setting, because we know that it's hard to go through some of the proposed changes that we're moving forward. So I guess I'd answer that in two ways. One, we do think that we've had those polar stars that are important to us as an institution. We also, if we're going to continue to lead this state as we move through September and beyond, it's on all of us as an institution for what does remain to tell that story. And I do think it can be very bright. It will be a challenging couple of years, but we can ultimately get there. Your question is a very good one in thinking about our goals. You got to measure what matters and then try to achieve them going forward. And we need to continue on that process.
Last question online from Douglas Terry.
Hi, yes, I'm Douglas Terry. I'm on the Beckley campus, and my question is for President Gee, whoever would like to answer it. Thinking about our students and just sort of more broadly, I'm kind of wondering, what do administration think about how the elimination of a department like world languages will affect our students in the long term, and then also the West Virginians, more generally who we serve, who might not have the same kind of opportunity for language learning and for cultural learning. Thank you.
Well, that is certainly a valid question, and I will tell you that we've had that question a lot over the past couple weeks. And rather than focus on one individual program, because we have all kinds of data, I just want to say that I just want to reiterate that these are very hard choices. These are choices that based upon data that we made preliminary recommendations, our senior leadership team endorsed them, but the things we do will have an impact. And if, we eliminate one program completely, it will have an impact. It will have an impact beyond students who enroll in those programs. We said from the beginning that even good programs might be eliminated or reduced because of this process. So I hear what you're saying. There's a lot of data to support the decisions that we made, but it does not in any way lessen the impact of what is lost through this process. So, thank you.
Can I just follow up? I'm just wondering what administration think will be lost. I'm just wanting to sort of know, because clearly there are trade-offs obviously that need to happen, but it means that our students will be receiving less in certain areas. And I think that language and culture seems to be hit the hardest. And I'm wondering just what administration feels that loss will be, if there is a loss. I have not really heard that articulated in terms of how it will affect our students and West Virginia more broadly, because this is a decision that might have lingering ramifications.
Anybody care to address that?
First of all, I believe that every student should have an opportunity to study a language. I am actually proficient in two. Not as proficient as I would like to be, but I did. And I lived overseas for 3 years, so I understand that both in German and Italian. I think that the question is a good one. So the question is whether you're eliminating a department or whether you're eliminating a program. And right now, what happened is the fact that of the R1 universities, in terms of world languages and literatures, we are second from the bottom in terms of number of degrees granted. In other words, our students have spoken in that regard. Now, what do we provide for them? I think that we have to say, what other options do we have and what other opportunities do we have to do that? And that's the questions we're going to ask ourselves. But when out of the R1 institutions, when we rank at the very bottom, that's not where I want to be with these programs. And so it's not working. And so we have to figure out another way to think about what we're doing in terms of those kind of exposures. But I'm a strong believer in the cultural issues and the languages, but there are multiple roads to salvation. And this road to salvation just wasn't working very well for us. So we'll find another road to salvation. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, President Gee. Next item on our report, on our agenda is a report from Cindy Trickett-Shockey, Chair of Curriculum Committee.
Good afternoon, Cindy Shockey from the School of Dentistry. I would like to report on our committee for the year. We're just getting started. We had our organizational meeting on last Thursday, on the 24th. We had some training. And I do believe with the transitions and the different things that are going to be happening, we have one or two things that can happen with this this committee, we're either going to be busier than a one-arm wallpaper hanger, or we're going to have nothing to do. But I think we're going to be quite busy, as the indications are. I am telling you, as a member of your faculty senate, I pledge as your chairman of this committee that the committee is going to be doing their darndest to get this done and get all the work that needs to happen as quickly and as completely as possible. We are already had that organizational training meeting that I was talking about. We will be meeting again this Thursday, and we're going to be organizing ourselves so that we're able to meet the deadlines. I'm going to ask that each of you, and in your endeavors to make your course changes or have any of your proposals, to please visit the Faculty Senate Curriculum Committee's website, and please note the dates for certain courses to be able to be included in the spring catalog or maybe in the fall catalog. There are specific dates because each course has to go through a protocol which involves your own department of curriculum committees. Then it comes finally to this committee. It has to go through, it has to get approval. It has to go through executive committee approval, finally to the whole faculty senate, and then it can be added to the catalog. We're asking that we try to work as quickly as we can and also make sure that we're able to do this review process as transparently and as quickly as we can. As they say in the Looney Tunes, that's all, folks.
Any questions for Cindy? Great, thank you, Cindy. Next, we have a report from Mary Beth Angeline, Chair of General Education Foundations Committee.
Hi, Mary Beth Angeline, Eberly College Math. The Jeff Committee has not met yet. We plan on continuing progress that we made last year. We reviewed 11 courses and approved 9 of them. We also looked at other universities and colleges and reviewed their gen ed curriculum, and we're trying to get a baseline to compare credits, course offerings, and areas represented. We also had a Jeff definition approved. We completed a rubric so that we could evaluate everybody equally and fairly. And we're working with Tracy Beckley to develop an instrument to ascertain the committee's members' views on essential Jeff elements. We hope that that survey will be adapted and sent out to all the faculty. And lastly, we are working with the registrar's office to develop a list of Jeff courses to review in terms of their viability. As right now, we have 91 courses that have not been offered in the past more than 2 years. And we've reached out to members that were teaching those courses to find out if they planned on offering them. So we're just trying to clean up some of that. And that's the work that we'll be doing going forward. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next report is from Marina Galvez Peralta, Chair of TACO, Teaching and Assessment.
Good afternoon, everybody. Marina Galvez from the School of Pharmacy, Chair of TACO. Our committee is finding a time to be able to meet. We haven't met first meeting yet, but the mission for TACO for this year is going to be to keep empowering faculty and helping out to document and report all the teaching and impact that the teaching is doing across. We are going to continue the mission that was started last year with Diane Davis, when we are going to find alternative ways to demonstrate and document the impact of teaching. In the past year, we have faculty piloting the alternative feedback from students, and we will be continuing that, providing information to faculty. We want to also provide more tools like the how to create a good teaching narrative and other instruments to document the teaching.
Questions for Marina? Thank you. By the way, for those who are new, these committees are not are not behind. We're ahead. Usually these reports happen at the first meeting in September, so we appreciate that you all are reporting out nonetheless. Our next report is from Committee on Committees, Chair Leslie Cottrell.
Hello, Leslie Cottrell, School of Medicine. So the Committee on Committees met late in the spring. We've continued to meet. What you see before you on the agenda is something for your approval. We set the committees, obviously, at that point in the last semester. There's been a lot of flux over the summer, and that's not unusual. Have a bigger volume this summer. So what you see there is the current roster for each committee. These have already been changed, or in the process of being changed on the website. The last thing I would say before I request approval is that our committee works by a document that's been developed through our bylaws, and that states the composition that we seek for all of the committees. So we use that as our basis. I will note that we have added many more members than that least amount or composition requires. Many people want to serve, and so that's a great idea, great thing to see. So if you're interested, let us know, myself, and we will try to make that happen. So with that, I request approval.
And I'm sorry, I have misplaced my agenda in this shuffle. Can you repeat the item for approval, please? I'm sorry.
I didn't say, sorry, Annex 2.
Annex 2, and so all in favor of approving Annex 2, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that's approved. Okay, the next report is from our representative to state government, Eloise Elliott.
Thank you, Frankie. As the WVU faculty representative to state government, I also serve on the HEPC Advisory Council of Faculty, and I announced this at the last meeting this summer, but Frankie insisted that I say again that I've been elected as chair of that council for this coming year. Other than that, I don't have a report.
Thank you, Eloise, and congratulations. There was a little bit of applause there for you. At least one person thinks that's a great thing other than me. Next, the report from Stan Heilman, our representative.
I also think it's a
Board of
great
Governments.
thing,
Okay, that's
just that,
3 of us. Good, thank
The board met last week. Much of what you've heard today, we also heard. As Stephanie had mentioned, we had pushed for inclusion of clinical and library faculty in the severance package plan. And after discussion of that and making sure that Karen Diaz, the Dean of Libraries, was comfortable with what was proposed, that was passed. The only other thing I'd mention is that the board endorsed the combining of Davis and Extension College. Next meeting is September 15th.
Questions for Stan? And I will add that the Stephanie had mentioned the links for BOG comment and speaking, and Corey's actually in the process of crafting an email to faculty with those links, so that should be in your inbox probably tomorrow. Thanks, Stan. Okay, next we have the annual committee reports for 2022-2023 were distributed as links in your agendas, annexes 3 through 13. Does anyone have any questions concerning any of the reports? And we have 2 resolutions next. The first one is to renew the Committee on Collaboration as a special committee again for this year. And that was presented in Annex 14. And the resolution is for what we call the LU meeting, is a special committee to provide input into curricular related items, and then it has expanded to include opportunities from other members of the Provost's office to come and give and receive feedback on pending items. So is there a motion to approve the resolution? Thank you. Second? Thank you, Scott. All in favor, say aye, please. Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a resolution to presented in Annex 15 to amend the Faculty Senate Constitution to change the term of service for the Faculty Senate representative to state government to 2 years. The reason for the need for this resolution is that we, through the process of Eloise running for that position and being elected to that position, discovered that we have a mismatch between the state requirement for representatives to the AFC and how our position works in terms of term of service. So again, that resolution is in your annex. We're just trying to align those terms of service so that in the future, if we have any people who serve as officers, they can see out their term. If the motion, if the resolution passes here, it would go to the regular University Assembly, not the special University Assembly, which will be announced as a date in October, and to be ratified or for vote for ratification there. So is there a motion to approve the resolution to shift that term of service? Thank you, Stan. Is there a second? Thank you, Leslie. All in favor, say aye. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, all opposed, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? The question, what we were talking about is that requires a 2/3 vote. And so if it were close, we were going to need to do a hand vote, but it does not sound close. So the resolution passes and will be forwarded to University Assembly for vote for ratification. Is there any new business?
Hello, Brian Dolcher, School of Medicine. I'd like to make a motion, if that's all right. Motion for the Faculty Senate to consider a vote to request the University Assembly be moved to a hybrid format on a case-by-case basis for faculty that cannot attend an in-person meeting due to university-sponsored or scheduled responsibilities.
There's been a motion placed on the floor. Do we have that in writing? There was some action to get that in writing. No, okay. So there's been a motion made to move the meeting to a hybrid format for those who are not able to attend. You got a
So
caveat.
on a case-by-case
On a
basis.
case-by-case basis.
For faculty that have other university-sponsored events or scheduled responsibilities.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Any other new business?
Hi, Frankie. I'm wondering if it'd be within the rules to ask one more question from before. I've known that went on for like a long time, but I for better or for worse, I think Rob might have made some news, so I just want him to clarify something. If he doesn't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
I think it was in response to the first part of Dan's question, and of course you gave lots of caveats, gave lots of context, much appreciated. But I think if we heard correctly, you said that the RIFs are anticipated to save in the range of 16 to 18 million. But the budget numbers that have been generally shown for this year show for this year a 45 million deficit. So I'm just guessing when people hear the 16 to 18, they're going to want to have more information about what else the university is doing to deal with this year's deficit if it's more than twice what the RIFs are likely to accomplish. Is there anything you could say to that?
Yes, so let me clarify. Thank you, Scott, for the question to try to work through that. So we need to achieve $45 million in savings as compared to the fiscal year 2023 budget that just ended and the fiscal year 25 budget, which begins July 1 of 2024. And so we did that in 2 steps. So the first step was in for fiscal year 2024, we did a $21 million reduction. And I think there were around 135 non-renewals of personnel to help us achieve that 21 million. And it was not, that total personnel did not achieve that 21 million, but we did other expense reductions unrelated to personnel. So that leaves $24 million of a gap to close for fiscal year 25, subject to the caveats of enrollment and all of those things. And so it is our goal to achieve at least that $24 million to balance our budget, or even perhaps have some monies to invest in that which remains. And so what I tried to articulate that is based on average faculty salaries. If there were no appeals granted, you'd be somewhere in the $16 to $17 million range. If there's appeals granted, and depending on who might retire and what's left, it might be a little bit more than that or a little bit less than that. So just on the program review proposed faculty reductions, that closes, let's say, 16 to 17 million at most of the 24 million that we're talking about. So it's not a 3 times gap. There would need to be additional revenue through beating the revenue targets from an enrollment perspective. I'm not trying to suggest that will be the case, just explaining in the amount of $7 to $8 million. I'm sorry, the difference between 16 million and 24, so $8 million for additional cuts. And so, for example, we think there will be savings through each of the 2 college mergers. Not replacing the vice president of talent and culture, this is public. I think Chris's salary was a little bit over 300,000. So plus benefits, that will be saved. As we work through the academic service unit review and the administrative service unit review, and we look at what remains, we'll need to propose additional cuts elsewhere in the university to close that gap. But the gap, you are correct that if there's 16 million, I'm not saying that there will be after the appeals process, but let's assume there's $16 million worth of salary and benefit from the faculty reductions. There would be $8 million either through revenue enhancements or additional cuts that the university would have to identify. Hope I didn't confuse that.
No, actually, you made it really clear, and if, I don't know if the reporters in here or not, but I think kind of combining the cuts from last year with cuts of this year is a very helpful to understand shorthand for kind of how this all fits together. And so I think the way you just responded made that really clear. So thank you.
Yeah. So, and I apologize. I know that we've had a lot of conversations, and we've actually I'll be quiet in just a second, but we've actually talked a little bit about, should we have gone with 21 and 24, or should we have just gone with 45? And so the answer is it's a 2-step process to get to the ultimate 21 in base this year, plus another 24 next year that we're trying to work towards. So thank you for the question and allowing me to clarify.
Thanks, Rob. Is there any more new business? Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Dan. Is there a second? Lots of seconds. We're adjourned. Thank you.